PIP insurance, every driver has to carry it. It is important coverage, or is it a source of fraud? I'm Miranda Kahn, and you're watching WPTV's Ask the Attorney web chat. Joining me today, once again, is Scott Smith, a partner of the personal injury law firm of Lytle, Ryder, Smith, Ivey, and Fronrath. And Scott, thanks so much for joining us again.
Thank you for having me.
This week we're talking about PIP insurance. Can you explain what exactly that is?
Sure. PIP, which is the acronym for Personal Injury Protection, is a type or a subcategory of motor vehicle insurance that is required in the state of Florida. And what PIP does is it ensures that someone involved in an accident, whether they're at fault or not at fault, will have their medical expenses paid following an accident up to $10,000 or any additional amount the insured may elect to purchase.
Now, there's been some controversy about PIP. In your opinion, what are the benefits of having it here in Florida?
Well, first of all, for the insured, the benefit is that he or she knows that the first $10,000 of their medical treatment is going to be paid for. Excuse me. And then the benefit of the medical provider is they know they're going to be paid. There's some type of insurance.
Right.
Because if the person has no health insurance, PIP could be the only type of insurance to ensure the medical provider gets paid.
Now, there was a study that came out recently that was suggesting that PIP insurance actually causes an above-average number of fraudulent accident claims in Florida. Curious, what is your take on that?
I read that article with great interest that was printed here in the past week in the Palm Beach Post, and actually reached out to the author of such article because there were so many glaring omissions from that article.
Really?
Yes. Number one, the fact...
So enlighten us.
Sure.
Okay. Sure.
Number one, as you and I talked about earlier, PIP sunsetted or was allowed to extinguish about 3 years ago in 2007.
Right.
Explain
what that means.
Sure. It means it just vanished. It went away. The statute had a clause in it indicating that PIP would sunset or go away after 20 years.
Okay.
The legislature, in the legislative session just prior to the sunset of PIP, elected to allow it to go away. In those 3 or 4 months that we didn't have PIP in the state of Florida, there was an outcry from the medical profession, mainly emergency rooms, hospitals, ER doctors, trauma hawk companies, radiologists, neurosurgeons, orthopedic doctors, those that are the first line of treatment for people that have been injured in an accident. Why was there an outcry? They weren't getting paid. They had a lot of drivers, patients, come to the hospital with no health insurance, and without PIP, they weren't getting paid. So PIP serves a great public service in ensuring that our medical profession is taken care of when someone is traumatically injured in an accident. Yes, there is fraud in PIP. There's fraud in everything.
Right.
But for the one instance of fraud, should we do away with having PIP for the other thousands of legitimate accidents that occur and the person needs the PIP? Absolutely not. It makes no sense. That article that was written was one-sided. The only people that were asked to comment on it were not even insurance industry people, but those that are employed by insurance industry task force that obviously construe it in favor of the insurance industry. Interestingly, I don't think the insurance companies want to see PIP go away. They actually make a lot of money off of selling PIP. What they want to do is strengthen the ability to investigate and prosecute fraud. And you know what, as a trial lawyer, we agree with that. We think that's a great thing. We don't like fraud. I don't like to see my premiums go up because there's fraudulent people out there, and we would love to work with the insurance industry in preventing fraud, and in particular what we're talking about today, PIP fraud.
Isn't Florida on the whole kind of a target for insurance fraud anyway? I mean,
South Florida is a big metropolitan area. Just like New York, Chicago, Houston, Dallas, LA, we are vulnerable to fraudulent schemes because we are such a large metropolitan area, and our state does require PIP. So, sure, we are in a situation where we need to monitor it, we need to investigate it, and we need to prosecute it when we find it.
Now, you mentioned that the PIP law expired 20 years or sunsetted.
After 20 years, correct.
So is it possible again that it could change?
Sure, absolutely. Right. Our legislature is going to meet here again, and today's February 15th in what, less than 3 weeks, or about 3 weeks from now, and I'm sure PIP in some shape or form will be on the agenda for the legislature to tweak it. Whether or not it's going to be completely overhauled this session, I don't think so. I've seen nothing to suggest that. But it certainly could be tweaked by our legislature.
Now, you were mentioning earlier about doctors and medical professionals not getting paid, and patients were coming in that didn't have health insurance. What are some other consequences, you think, if people didn't have PIP insurance?
Well,
In addition to that?
PIPs, let's get back to what its primary purpose is.
Right.
The primary purpose of PIP is to ensure that one injured in a motor vehicle accident, whether he or she is at fault, will have access to $10,000 of coverage to make payment for medical treatment. So if there is no PIP, and if they have no health insurance, they're going to have to go into their own pockets to pay the doctors, the hospitals for their treatment. And that can be tough. We see in this recession it's tough for people just to make ends meet, let alone find that extra money to pay $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $50,000 in medical bills. So, knock on wood, that never happens to anybody seeing this, but that's the first line of defense that PIP serves a purpose for. Second, I'll keep getting back to it, it allows the medical doctors to know there's at least the $10,000 in coverage when they treat someone following an auto crash. Because, think about it, you go to, Trauma Hawk goes to an accident site, the person is unconscious or people are unconscious, they are traumatically injured, society has to take care of them. We've got to get them to the nearest trauma facility as soon as possible to either save their lives or prevent them from suffering further injury. They don't have time at the accident location to discuss, do you have insurance? So with PIP being in place, they can go to the scene, bring them to the hospital knowing that there's at least $10,000 in coverage to pay for those medical bills. If we didn't have PIP, if PIP just went away, well, what we set ourselves up for is that you and I and every other citizen need to be prepared to be responsible for paying for our doctor's bills, God forbid, if we're the victim of an accident. And we talked about how big of an area South Florida is. There's an accident occurring at some intersection or some road somewhere probably every minute of the day. Even though we all try our best to drive cars, the roads are busy out there.
Right.
And it's just, unfortunately, it's a nature of the beast. While we're riding around in motor vehicles and we're as tight as we are on these roads, accidents are going to occur.
But, there are a lot of people out there that are complaining about their insurance rates are high enough as it is.
Sure.
So we're going to give the other side real quickly. If people didn't have PIP, some people think that their insurance premiums would go down. Do you think that's true?
No, I don't think it's true. It would actually probably be the opposite, because if we didn't have PIP, the Florida legislature would have no choice but to require people to purchase what's called bodily injury protection. That's another subcategory of auto insurance. And they would have to put that into place, because without PIP, there'd have to be another source of paying for the medical bills one incurs when they get injured. And what bodily injury protection is, it's the type of insurance so that if you or I cause an accident when we leave here today, and then someone brings a claim against us, we have our bodily injury protection to protect our assets. So what I think would happen is if PIP is eliminated, we'd see bodily injury go into its place, so you'd have to purchase that, and bodily injury protection is probably more costly than personal injury protection.
So for those viewers that are watching right now, if you are in favor of PIP insurance and you're worried about this expiring, and as you mentioned, lawmakers are going to be meeting here in about 3 weeks, what should those people do in order to make sure PIP doesn't expire?
It's not going anywhere in the immediate future, unless I'm shocked over the next few weeks that the legislature decides to do away with PIP, which would literally shock me. I think what will happen up there during this annual legislative session is just a tweaking of the statute, or Section 627.736 of Florida statutes. I don't think we're going to see much more than that as we go through this legislative session. Down the road, years from now, I'd be speculating as to what the legislature will do, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. But
we'll
for now,
be on top of that.
hopefully you and I are both still here.
Right. Scott, thank you so much. That's all the time we have for questions today, but as always, we learned a lot. Good to have you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for joining us. And remember, we'll have an attorney from Lytle, Ryder, Smith, Ivey, and Fronrath here every other Tuesday at 1:30 in the afternoon, right here on WPTV.com, answering the questions you submit online in the Ask the Attorney section of our website. And if we didn't get to your questions during this webcast, we'll make sure that someone does respond to you with an answer. So make sure to get those questions in. We like getting them. And thanks for joining us.